My decision to do Monsters a cappella was part of a dream that was always present in the development of this ministry. In the very beginning, I wanted to do songs a cappella. The first song I recorded, Lord, I recorded a cappella, and there's several songs along the way I've done a cappella. I did Itch and Wayfaring Stranger, but I was talking to a friend of mine, Lois Wade, and she asked me, what's the next thing you're going to do? You've done this, what's the next thing? I go, I don't know, what do you think the next thing should be? And she goes, I don't know, just you and God. That's all I can see is just you and God. And I go, you know what, I should do that. I should do just a vocal record, just a cappella, and that was kind of the confirmation to finally just go and do it. I created the work for the Phoenix Fringe Festival, for the 2010 festival, and did the show as, it was called The Monsters I've Been, and the first song is Shema, which is a traditional Jewish worship song. It's the Hebrew text is the first sentences of the law. It's the text that's in the scroll, that's in the mezuzah that the Jews put on their homes, on their doorposts. And I wrote it as a worship song that we did in church many years ago, incorporating a psalm, incorporating scripture from Revelation with the original Hebrew text. And by opening the show with Shema, by opening the record with Shema, I set a few standards. One, you have no idea what's going to fly out of my mouth. Two, I establish a reverence for Judaism, a reverence for Christianity, but also an irreverence, because obviously to some Jews it would be offensive what I did with that text. And the second song, the Rolling Stones song, Jumping Jack Flash, was supposed to be the beginning of me doing Rolling Stones songs on the subsequent records, and it doesn't look like that's really panning out. It's funny because now that it's not panning out and I'm not planning on doing it, Jumping Jack Flash has had so many downloads, and the videos had so many downloads. I kind of have a little bit of a viral hit on my hands. But I love the song. I did it in my high school band, and again, it was an experiment with context. Here you have a song that people know and they know very well, and yet my presentation of it, it sounds like it's my life experience. And last time I looked, my mother wasn't a toothless, bearded hag, but I think the core of the song is saying I had it really bad, and now I'm living the good life, and I'm walking cool. And when I first started doing the song, I introduced it saying that the Rolling Stones are my Beatles, and I've done a traditional spiritual on almost every one of my records. Well, if church was rock and roll, I think the music would sound an awful lot like the Rolling Stones, and to me it is tradition to do songs by the artists that have really molded you in your art, in your talent. And Mickey Jag influenced me just beyond measure. And what's so beautiful is he still does that. He's still doing it. He still looks great. He still sounds great. One of my favorite artists of all time, Patti Smith, calls him the greatest rock star of all time. That makes me feel good that I'm in good company, that I still love Mick Jagger and I still love the Rolling Stones. And the third song on the record is my first original composition on the record, completely original composition I should say, Wicked Wicked. Wicked Wicked was a movie that came out in the 70s that experimented with split screen. For the entire movie, it had two different things going on the whole time. It was a horror movie. I don't even think it's available on DVD. I hope one day it is. It was really cool. And the song Wicked Wicked is about an evil person. An evil person who looks at life and looks at the world as a place where he can just trash and have whatever he wants and do whatever he wants. And it begins the process of the struggle of monsters. That you have the Jewish worship, you have the Christian worship, you have the street worship of Jumping Jack Flash. You have someone who's trying to find their way in Judaism and Christianity in the world, in rock and roll. But when they're alone, they're just a, well, deviant little shit. And of course this is autobiographical. Of course I'm a serial killer. Of course I'm a monster. And I wrote this for myself. I wrote this piece for myself. I have always wanted to explore the concept of the sociopath, the serial killer, in theater, in art, in music, and Monsters was me scratching the surface of that. And I do have subsequent works planned to go into it in greater length, but I don't know when I'm actually going to do them. And Wicked Wicked has one of my strongest choruses. It's a wicked, wicked web I weave in a wicked, wicked world. It's a wicked little mess I leave. I said my line wrong. It's a filthy little mess I leave. I want to do over. It's a wicked, wicked. I've never tried talking it. It's funny when you're singing it, it makes perfect sense. It's a wicked, wicked web I weave in a wicked, wicked world. It's a filthy little mess I leave in this wicked, wicked world. I can't tell you how many people who have seen the song perform live have come up to me afterwards saying, you know, like weeks later, months later, I can't get that song out of my head, and they start singing it. And I love what they do. They do what I do. They rub their little hands together all maniacally, and I love that song. It ends on I'll show up at your door one night in the rain. That, you know, just a hint of I'm a stalker and I'm a creep, and very challenging song for gospel music. And when I've performed it, I definitely have seen that people were offended by it. Well, they didn't know that the next song was going to be called Blood. So I was just beginning the offense. And Blood was written in response to a movie I saw in the 70s. I didn't write it in the 70s, but called A Gunfight with Kirk Douglas and Johnny Cash. And they're both in love with the same barmaid, and they decide to have a gunfight, and whoever lives gets the girl at the end. And it's a very existential Western, phenomenal film. Kirk Douglas obviously is one of our icons, and Johnny Cash held his own on film. And I was working on not a country music, but a Western music project in the 80s, where I was writing songs inspired by Westerns. And Trust Me, the song where I say I'll never let anything bad happen to you, came out of that, and Spirit of a Man came out of that, and Blood came out of that.